All right, let's look at this question. Given the matrix D, 1 minus, okay, for the first row, I'm having 1 minus 3 and 4. For the next row, I'm having what? 2 minus 5 and 7, 0 minus 1 and 1. Find determinant of the matrix D. P, cofactors of matrix D. All right, let's looking at this. I'm having a 3 by 3 matrix, right? Since I'm having 3 rows and 3 columns, so this is a 3 by 3 matrix. And earlier we did how to find determinant of a matrix D. Okay, so this question in particular gives us a kind of leverage in knowing the difference between a determinant and a cofactor. So let's start with the first question there, determinant of matrix D. Solution. Okay, so in getting your determinant of this, we simply write determinant of a given matrix as this, right? So this gives you what? The determinant of a given matrix, right? D. All right. So in getting the determinant for this, mind you, for determinant, you still work with what? Your sign convention, but not as we did our cofactors. For this, I'm having a plus, a minus, and a plus. So I'll be choosing just my first row, right? I'll pick my first row. Okay, the idea behind what I said was before solving a problem, always write your problem first, right? So let's write down our given matrix first. So our given matrix is 1 minus 3, 4. Next up, I'm having 2 minus 5, 7. Next up, I'm having 0 minus 1 and 1. All right, so let's get the determinant of that. The determinant of D, always remember you work with a sign convention. Don't just start solving. I'll pick this as my plus, minus, and plus. This is your sign convention, right? So for this, in calculating the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix, you need what? A 2 by 2 matrix, right? So we will have to form a 2 by 2 matrix. How do we do that? For my first row, I'll pick the first number there, which is what? A plus 1. Remember your sign. Plus 1. So I'm having a plus 1. All right. 1. And next up, I create what? A 2 by 2 matrix. So this is how you create a 2 by 2 matrix in getting your determinant. So I'll pick my the first element there. I'll cover the row and column on which it appears. So for my 1 is appearing on my first row, of course, and what? The first column. So I'm having this out and this out. All right, so these are the elements left. Minus 5, 7, minus 1 and 1. Remember, cover what? The first row and what? The first column. Why picking what? The first element there. And my first element there is what? A plus 1. So I can write plus 1 or just 1. It's the same thing. So pick it and do what? Create a 2 by 2 matrix. So let's create that. This is what is left. Minus 5, 7, minus 1, and what? 1. Alright, we do same thing for the next element there. My next element is what? A minus minus 3. Minus minus 3. Please be careful. Don't just pick your minus 3 and you forget what? Your sign convention. So I'm having a minus minus 3. Create what? A 2 by 2 matrix. Next step, you do what? Create a 2 by 2 matrix. How do you create a 2 by 2 matrix? Cover the row and column on which that particular element appears, right? And pick the rest. So how do you do that? For this, I'll cover this. It appears on my second column and still on my first row. So what are the elements left? 2, 7, 0, and 1. So I'm having 2, 7, 0 and 1. Alright, I'll have to clean this. Okay, for the next one, I'll do same thing. For the next element there, I'm having a plus 4, plus 4, plus 4. Create what? A 2 by 2 matrix. Do same thing. Cover the row and column on which it appears. So this appears on my last column and still on what? My first row. So I'm covering this and I'm covering this. So what are the elements left? 2, minus 5, 0 and minus 1. So I'm having 2, minus 5, 0 and 1. Okay, so this is the idea behind matrix. We've gotten this. Okay, 2 minus 5, 0 and minus 1. Okay, thank you. 0 and minus 1. So this is it. This is it. All right. I don't need to start checking for this, checking for this. I don't need to do that. So this is the idea behind determinants, right? Okay, so let's get our determinant for this 2 by 2 matrix, this and this, and then we multiply it by the coefficient of that particular matrix and we are done. All right. For the first one, I'm having a 1, right? 1. So let's get the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix. I said in getting the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix, you simply say what? You simply take the difference between the product of your leading diagonal and what? The product of your second diagonal. So this is what I'm doing. Minus 5 times 1 gives me what? A minus 5 minus the product of what? Your second diagonal. I'm having minus 1 times 7 and it gives me what? A minus 7. So I'm supposed to write a minus 7 here, right? Minus 7. So minus times plus gives me what? Plus. So I'm having a plus 7 instead. Alright, so we are done with this particular term. We move over to the next term there. Minus times minus gives you what? Plus 3. Bracket. Next up, you do same thing. Product of leading diagonal minus the product of your second diagonal. So I'm having a 2 times 1, 2 minus 0 times 7 gives you what? 0. Alright, over to the last term there. I'm having a plus 4. Plus 4. Okay, so I'm having a 2 times minus 1 gives me what? A minus 2. 0 times minus 5 gives me what? 0. So I'm having minus 0. Alright, so let's simplify this. I'm having 1 minus 5 plus 7 gives you what? 2. Plus 3. 2 minus 0 gives you what? 2. Finally, plus 4 bracket minus 2 minus 0 gives you what? A minus 2. Alright. Therefore, for this, I'm having 1 times 2, 2 plus 3 times 2, 6. And finally, 4 times minus 2 gives me what? Minus 8. So let's simplify that. In simplifying this, I'll get what? 0. 2 plus 6 is what? 8. 8 minus 8 gives me what? 0. Alright. So this is it. This is it. Alright. A matrix that has the determinant to be 0 is called what? A singular matrix. Please remember that. A matrix in which the determinant is 0 is called a singular matrix. So that is a type of matrix, right? So we've gotten that our determinant of this matrix is equal to 0. Okay, so let's look at the B part of this question. Cofactors of matrix D. Alright, cofactors of matrix D. That was our B part. Cofactors of matrix D. So let's get that. Get that. All right, cofactor of D. All right. Now remember when I said cofactor of D. When we're looking for cofactor, we actually made mention of working with a sign convention, right? So you don't make that mistake. Don't forget your sign. Never you forget your sign. So you could in any of your rough, you could just write down the signs. I'm having a plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. Of course, it is a 3 by 3 matrix. So this is what we have. All right, let's go. Let's go. For this, the idea is creating what? A 2 by 2 matrix for each of the elements, right? Creating a 2 by 2 matrix for each of these elements here. So how do I do that? Same thing. You pick your first element, but I'm not writing it down like the way I did for determinant. So for this, I'll pick what? My first element and create a 2 by 2 matrix. How do you do that? Cover the row and column on which that particular element appears. So this is one. One is appearing on my first row and first column. So I'm covering this and this, right? Cover this and this. And these elements are not covered, minus 5, 7, and minus 1. So I'll take that, I'll create a 2 by 2 matrix and write it as what? My first element here. So I'm having a minus 5, 7, minus 1, and 1. All right. This is what I'm having for that. I'll go over to my second element, do the same thing. I'll create what? A 2 by 2 determinant. How do you do that? Same thing. Cover the row and column on which it appears. So I'm covering this and this, right? Cover this and this. So if I'm covering this and this, the elements left are 2, 7, 0, and 1. So I'll create it. Mind you, your sign is always there. Your sign minus. So I'm having minus 2, 7, 0, and 1. All right. Next up, we move over to our next element there, which is a 4. Cover the row and column on which it appears. This and this, right? This and this. So the elements left are 2, minus 5, 0, and minus 1. Write it. It's a plus, even if I don't write it. 2, minus 5, 0, and minus 1. Okay. We are done with what? Our first row. We do same thing for the second row and third row. So how do we go with that? For this element now, this is my first element on my second row. Please remember that this is it now. This is what I want. I'll create a 2 by 2 matrix for it and replace it, right? So I'm having a minus there. Let's write down our minus first. Minus. Then we create a 2 by 2 matrix there. So how do you do that? Cover the row and column on which it appears. I'll keep repeating it. Cover the row and the column on which this particular element appears, right? So I'm covering this and this. So what are left? Minus 3, 4, minus 1, and 1. So I'm having minus 3, 4, minus 1, and 1. Next thing, for the next element, do same thing. I'll cover this and this. Cover this and this. So what are left? 1, 4, 0, and 1. So I'm having 1, 4, 0, and 1. All right. We move to our next element there. The next element is what? 7. Cover the row and column on which it appears. It is appearing on my second row and the last column. So the elements left are 1, minus 3, 0, and minus 1. So I'm having, mind you, your sign, always remember it, minus, right? So I'm having minus, okay, minus what? 1, minus 3, 0, and minus 1. Alright, so we are done with what? Our second row. We move over to our last row, right? We do same thing for the last row. Okay, in doing that now, let's look at it. What is our sign convention? Plus, minus, plus. Same thing. For the first element there, I'm having 0. Cover the row on which it appears, and the column. So this is what I'm covering, this and this. The elements left are minus 3, 4, minus 5, and 7. Write it down. Write it down. Minus 3, 4, minus 5, and 7. Okay, we go over to what? Our next element there. Our sign convention here is what? A minus, please. Write it down. Minus, create your 2 by 2 matrix. Alright, cover the row and column on which it appears. I'm covering this and this. Right, so I'm left with 1, 2, 4, and 7. 1, 2, 4, and 7. So I'm having 1, 2, 4, and 7. And finally, to the last element there, which is our 1, right? We cover the row and column on which it appears. I'm covering this and the last column. So what are the elements left? 1, minus 3, 2, and minus 5. Alright. 1, minus 3, 2, and 5. Okay, alright. So we are almost done. We are almost done. Alright, so we've created a table. So this is a cofactor of the matrix D. So this is how you get your cofactor of the matrix D. Okay, minus 5. Right? Okay, minus 5. Minus 5. Okay, so this is how you get the cofactor of a matrix, right? So you're not done. You're not done. You have to get what? The determinant at each point. Determinant at each point. And we've done determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix. So we apply the same rule. We apply the same rule. So how do we get that? How do we get that? Same thing, the product of your leading diagonal minus what? The product of your second diagonal. So this is it. Minus 5 for this first position, for the first element there. I'm having minus 5 times 1, which gives me what? A minus 5 minus product of second diagonal. Minus 1 times 7 gives us what? A minus 7, right? So minus 7, if I'm to write it, I'm supposed to have minus 7, right? So minus times minus gives me what? A plus 7. We move over to the next one. I'm having a minus. Minus 2 times 1 gives us what? 2. Minus 0 times 7 gives me what? 0. Alright. So the next one here, I'm having what? 2 times minus 1 gives me what? A minus 2. 2 times this gives what? A minus 2. 0 times this gives me what? A minus, okay, 0, right? So I'm having minus 0. Alright. Let's move over to the next row. Over to the next row, simplify. Over to the next row, we do same thing. Get your determinant. Minus 3 times 1. Remember, I'm having a minus sign outside. Alright, let's write it down first. Minus. Then we get what? Our determinant. Minus 3 times 1 gives me what? A minus 3. Minus 1 times 4 gives us what? A minus 4. Minus 4 times this minus gives us what? A plus 4. Alright. To the next term, I'm having 1 times 1, which is 1. minus 0 times 4 gives me what? 0. Next up, I'm having a minus sign outside, right? Minus 1 times minus 1 gives me what? A minus 1. 0 times minus 3. Okay, minus 0 times minus 3 gives us what? A 0. And finally, the last row. The last row. For the last row, I'm having what? This. Alright, we do the same thing, the determinants. Minus 3 times 7 gives me what? A minus 21. Minus, mind you, determinant, you're subtracting. Minus 5 times 4 gives you what? A minus 20. I'm supposed to write a minus 20 here. So minus times minus gives us what? A plus. Plus 20. Alright, same thing. Mind you, for our next element, I'm having a negative sign here, a minus sign here. So I have a minus 1 times 7 gives us what? 7. 2 times 4 gives us what? 8. Minus 8. Alright, for our last element, let's take this. 1 times minus 5 gives me a minus 5. Minus 2 times minus 3 gives us what? A minus 6. A minus 6. Minus times minus gives us what? Plus 6. Alright, so let's simplify this. And we know that we've created what? The cofactor of the matrix D. Okay. Therefore, we have for this minus 5 plus 7 gives us what? 2. 2 minus 0 is what? 2. Times minus gives us what? A minus 2. And finally, minus 2 minus 0 gives you what? A minus 2. Alright, so we are done with our first rule. So let's get our second rule. Minus 3 plus 4 gives you what? 1. Right? 1 times this minus gives me what? A minus 1. 1 minus 0 gives me what? 1. Minus 1 minus 0 gives you minus 1 times the minus outside gives you what? A plus 1. And finally, our last row. Minus 21 plus 20 gives us what? A minus 1. Okay, 7 minus 8 gives us what? A minus 1. Minus times this minus gives me what? A 1. And finally, minus 5 plus 6 gives us what? 1. Alright. Alright, this gives us what? The cofactor of the matrix D. So this is it. This is what? The cofactor of the matrix D. Right? So, alright, if you're given another question, let's say find the transpose of the cofactor D. How do you do it? Transpose. Okay, let me add that. Transpose. Let me add the C part. Transpose of the cofactor of D. Alright, so if you are asked to find the transpose of the cofactor of the same thing, you just have to do what? For your cofactor, after calculating your cofactor, you do what? Interchange the rows with column. Interchange what? the row with column. So the transpose, let's say, let's write it like this: transpose of cofactor D. Let's write it this way. Mind you, I said for transpose, you give it a power of t. So the transpose of this is simply doing what? Interchanging your rows and what? Column. So for this, I'll change it to what? My column. So I'm having that this is equal to, my matrix is equal to, for the first row, I'm having 2 minus 2 and minus 2. For this row, I'll change it to what? My second column, and I'll get what? Minus 1, 1, and 1. And for the last row, I'm having a minus 1, 1, and 1. Alright, so this gives you what? The transpose of the cofactor of the matrix D. Alright, so this is these are the ways of answering such questions like that. First thing, remember, for cofactor, there's a difference between cofactor and determinant, right? For your cofactor, you're breaking each term, each element into a 2 by 2 matrix, and then you get what? Your determinant, and you're good to go. That is what we did, and we created what? A cofactor of the given matrix D. So this is it. This is your final answer.